Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm your boy Abram, joined as usual by Tucker Hazel, and we're here today to compare and contrast the efforts of Camelot across Mario Tennis Aces and Mario Golf Super Rush, specifically the single-player adventure modes. But before we do, if you want to share your thoughts about Mario sports games or really anything else at all, join our Discord as usual. Link is right there at the top of the description. First
Right there.
thing, because we don't write descriptions.
That's true. I forget to do that
Right.
a lot. Yeah.
It makes it easy to click that link. You know what else is easy, Tucker?
Subscribing, probably.
Yes, subscribing, liking the video, ringing the bell. But that's the intro. We got the plugs. It's time to talk. Tucker, you played both of these games back to back for the first time.
Yeah, and it's time for the great adventure mode showdown.
Yes.
Can someone insert a little lightning effect?
You have to do that.
Okay. We're going to talk about these adventure modes because on the whole, I don't know if either of them are fantastic. I don't know if they're ideal. And I think both of them show the biggest problems of both games.
Sure. Well, so I did not like the Aces. So here's the deal. I played Aces at launch. I really love that game, especially now that it's gotten patched and everything. But playing the Super Rush campaign, which I think is just not good, as we're going to get into.
Yeah.
And then I was telling Tucker, maybe you like Aces more. Maybe it's higher production value, a little bit more interesting in terms of its concepts, and that's true.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's like the Justice League theatrical to Snyder Cut effect of where this one's real fucking bad, so this one being better makes it look a lot stronger than it actually is, perhaps.
I think that's probably my main point about this is it's hard to tell. I know people complained about the Aces Adventure mode a lot when it came out, but coming off of Super Rush and hopping right into the Aces story mode and having a much more consistent story, really fucking stupid one, but more consistent story. I think the overworld is great. I think the boss battles are significantly better and more consistent than the Super Rush ones. But is it a great adventure mode? Not really. It's just way better than the Super Rush one.
Yes, I agree. Now it's cut so I can mute Discord before people start having a conversation.
Yeah. No, don't. That's banjo stuff.
Oh, sorry.
Don't use the Lord's name, the Lord's sound in vain. I think I finished my point.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, so to speak to that, I had a lot of those issues that most people had at launch. I thought that the RPG elements were kind of borked. I thought that there was a lot of repetition of mission type.
Yeah.
And both things are true, but I think that Mario Tennis Aces is a lot better at executing on a digestible campaign that does have its own visual flair, has its own, contained way to explain the mechanics to you that doesn't just feel tutorialized.
Yeah.
Mario Golf Super Rush's adventure mode just feels like a tutorial where you're playing the same missions over and over and over again. And if they change, it's completely immaterial. Like the water meter in Balmy Dunes makes no impact on the gameplay.
Nope.
And so I think there's a lot more going for Aces. And I think in hindsight, having played it and then watching you play it and beating the parts for you that you couldn't beat, I think that there's a lot more going on there that is compelling opposed to Super Rush.
Yeah. And the thing is, we're comparing these two story modes and we're just putting it out there. And I think it's clear from what we're saying. The Aces one we're going to be talking about a lot more positively than the Super Rush one, because essentially this Super Rush video, having made him finish the adventure mode.
Yes.
This is going to be us kind of crapping on the Super Rush story mode because it really is bad. We have our first impressions up. We have a lot of videos of us talking about the game in general.
Yeah.
But after I beat that adventure mode, I wanted to push through and see what the whole experience was like. Yeah. I really think it's one of the most rushed, pun intended, adventure modes. Thank you. That I've ever seen. It really brings down the package because the production value is just so ridiculously low.
Well, I think that the story of Super Rush's adventure mode is one of missed potential.
Sure.
Because I think there are things that it does better than Aces. I think that having the concept of having an overworld hub that you can explore in 3D is a great idea.
Yes.
I think having more substantive RPG mechanics, alternate clubs, and uniforms is a great idea.
Yeah, yes,
those things addressed, I think, pretty central complaints of Aces. The problem is that those are good in concept, but in execution, Camelot implements them in the most surface level way possible.
Yeah.
It feels a lot like, to draw an analog that's kind of relevant, a lot of shooters have very tacked on campaigns, which are very clearly there, so you become familiar with the mechanics, so then you go play multiplayer.
Yeah. And so people say, hey, it has a campaign.
Right, and I think that's why this is here.
100%. 100%.
Which is frustrating because I think that Aces was a much more polished foundation that had very clear issues. You do the same, let's fucking fight the minions and knock their shots back at them. The racket RPG elements were hokum, pardon my language.
100%.
But they didn't really care. There was not the level of care in Aces that was in Super Rush in this single. I think anywhere in the game, but I think especially in the adventure mode.
Yeah, my main complaint with Aces is just that those elements you were talking about with the rackets and the repetition, I don't think they're inherently bad, and I think that's because it's a much more concise experience.
Yeah.
I didn't have the time to be like, okay, well, these RPG mechanics are really underwhelming because the adventure mode was over in 4 hours, and I always felt like I was moving forward. The problem with Super Rush is the golf format, I don't think, lends itself to a pace that feels super engaging. And not only that, but the format of the Super Rush adventure mode is really repetitive in a slow way that made me feel more often than not I had already done this before. There's not very much variety. What's going on?
Yeah. So because they're about the same length, I do think.
Sure. I certainly took longer on the Super Rush one, but probably just because I'm not that good at golf.
Yeah, I think I lost to a singular challenge in the Super Rush campaign, probably in 4 hours. I played everything after cross country golf to the conclusion of the game in a sitting in probably 90 minutes.
Yeah.
To 2 hours. I think the problem is not inherently length, is that there is no dressing up of the challenges opposed to what you do in local multiplayer.
Yeah.
The local multiplayer Super Rush experience is just the adventure mode experience, but you're playing with your friends and you're having more fun.
You are.
Yes. You're doing 3 holes, 9 holes, sometimes you do 18 holes. Sometimes you're playing speed golf. Sometimes you're playing like the point-based golf. You're playing local multiplayer. Once in a blue fucking when you're doing regular golf. But there is no dressing up of it.
Yeah.
Even if the mission archetypes are recycled in Aces, they are ways to play tennis that you will not see in multiplayer.
Yes. The boss battles, I think, are actually pretty damn good in them.
Yeah.
I love the Peter Piranha fight. I think the mirror one is weird, but it allows you to get a hand on aiming your shots a little better. The Bowser one took me way too fucking long, but is pretty cool. Baushin is the dumbest fucking villain name I've ever heard in my life. But I actually enjoyed the variety. And on top of that,
is my favorite.
Yeah, that's also a good one. You're using your jump dodge and stuff. That's really fun. But shit, I lost my train of thought.
I fucked it up.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. All right, train's coming. Oh, is the visual variety of Aces also lends itself to being much more engaging. Yeah. Every single challenge is on a different course, and you unlock that course after playing them.
Yeah.
Even some of the side missions are on different courses. They have different layouts. Well, layouts in terms of, stage hazards and stuff, which Super Rush really dropped the ball on. Pun entirely intended. I talked about in some of our other videos, one of my biggest disappointments with Super Rush is the way that it leans so heavily into golf instead of Mario. Yeah. The things that are their stage hazards, kind of, and their Mario things are most surface level you can get. You get a piranha plant crossing your way, okay, walk around it. You get a big sand blarg sticking up, doesn't do anything, nothing at all. And sometimes there will be a sheep, but very rarely. And the fact is that when your worlds feel so empty, and the only one that's really cool is the end one, the final course,
which is pretty good, I will say.
Which is pretty good. I just felt bored with a lot of it, and because of the repetition, the emptiness, I didn't have that problem with Aces because it moved at such a clip, and everything was at least mildly different in terms of visual engagement.
Yeah, and I think it's streamlined in terms of just how you get around. There's not room to walk around. At first, when I started playing Super Rush, I was charmed by these hub areas.
Yeah.
I thought that there was more to engage with. I thought, to your point about visual variety in Aces, is like, hey, I get to talk to these Koopas, I get to talk to the Hammer Brothers, all of these different enemies. I got Birdo. Birdo's my mother, who never comes back.
Yeah.
You got Charge and Chuck. These seemed interesting, but they don't follow through.
They don't play out at all. No.
And there is a very low level of visual fidelity.
Yes.
It's surprising. People ding Switch games for looking like a GameCube game, but genuinely, I think that aspects of Super Rush do look like a GameCube game, because there is so little detail, there is so little interactability.
Yeah.
It is a hub area in the most basic sense. In Aces, it might be a sort of stage-based overlay, almost like a Mario World type of overworld, but at least it's polished. It looks interesting.
Yes.
You're moving between points of interest that have been sculpted for you.
Yeah. I really didn't want to burst your bubble too much when you were so excited, filled with childlike glee playing the opening of that Super Rush adventure mode. None of the things that you were glowing about it initially carry through it all. I think the hub worlds actually get less interesting. I think that first one is the most diverse. There's more to like walk around with. There's more characters to talk to. After that, I think they take a pretty significant dip in quality, significant dip in interactability and explorability, and also the story for Super Rush is as dimped and rushed as you can possibly get. It starts off as that Pokemon-esque adventure, and you're like, okay, this is gonna be my story taking. You get environmental storytelling, not environmental storytelling. Like there's global warming essentially is the villain of the game, and it feels really ham-fisted. And then they're like, oh shit, we forgot to do a story. They try to catch it up in like the last 40 minutes of the story in a really rushed way that points out the glaring flaws. Is they didn't write this, they didn't pace it out properly, and they're just trying to play catch up near the end.
It's exactly the same as the story in Sword and Shield.
Sure.
It starts out with your personal journey, and then all of a sudden,
good point.
Boom, here comes the legendary. All of a sudden, fucking Chairman Rose is a psychopath. You gotta solve this
Sorbert, Shieldbert.
I still can't believe those are real characters in that game. But it comes out of nowhere. It's not well told. I just started mashing through the dialogue because Wario and Waluigi are like treasure hunting or something. It just
lightning sword, which you didn't believe was real. And
I thought you were fucking with me, but there's a lightning sword in the game.
Snow King is really lame.
It's really lame, and it very rarely has a spitting effect on gameplay.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Aces does. The one good example is when you go to the Bowser Highlands, and it's snow themed, which I thought, cool. So I'm gonna unlock this for local multiplayer, right? And then we do the Anakin Padme meme where you're like, I'm gonna unlock this for multiplayer, right? And you're like, no, you're not. It just that's what's disappointing about the Super Rush campaign. There are great moments. I think that cross country golf is a ton of fun. I think that the snow version of Bowser Highlands is a ton of fun.
Yeah,
but these moments are not capitalized on, and they're certainly the exception, not the rule.
100%. They're very fleeting. You see a cool idea, you're experiencing a cool course, cool moment in the story, and then you're spat right back out into okay. Just play 9 holes and then 18 holes. Like have a good time. And I found that to be very frustrating, the repetition. But mostly I was just it was really obvious to me that they had that catch up when the characters are just standing there and talking to one another, very empty, very basic. It's the most basic possible way to get a story mode across. And it I think is the clearest example of the reason or the fact that this is just in there because they wanted to say in that reveal trailer, hey, look, play as your me. There's an adventure mode.
And it looked really cool at the time.
Because we only saw the first area, which, as we said, is probably the best or most visually interesting area in the game.
Yeah, I just think it's just missed potential and poorly implemented ideas. I talked about it in a circumspect way, but you can level up your stats without ever dropping stats.
Yeah.
Because you can just put points into things that are already maxed out or you've already put into because how it's supposed to work is you level up in the game, you can add usually 2 stat points to like the power of your hit, how fast you can move, your stamina, things like that.
Yeah.
And usually raising one lowers another, but not always.
Yeah.
So if you're very
only like a third of the time or a fourth of the time.
Yeah. If you're very meticulous, you can never lose stats, which just doesn't make sense. The clubs they do affect gameplay, but they're really only necessary for cross-country golf.
Yeah.
And otherwise, you don't need them.
They always give you the chance to buy the new suits, to buy the new clubs, which is cool in concept. I think getting different outfits for your me, if it was a little more customizable, I think it would have been a better experience or, better implemented.
Yeah.
But they're not required for the challenges. I think if they gave you a little thing that said, hey, this is what a sand wedge does and how it affects your thing. Now we're gonna have a challenge where you get into bunkers a lot. And this is why you'll want to use the sand wedge to get out of it. They just don't play those out in any particular way. And I think it's most obvious in the late game mechanics that are introduced through the Duff thing, the Lob Master, these characters that they introduce to teach you a mechanic that never comes back. It's used for one challenge, maybe a boss battle, very short boss battles. We'll probably talk more about the boss battles. And then it never comes back. And then on top of that, those mechanics aren't useful outside of the story mode. So they're not only not played out in the story mode, but you can't even really use them in any material way in multiplayer.
Yeah, and to that point, there's a weird balance of things that are taken from just the multiplayer experience and retrofitted for single player, like the courses,
Mm-hmm.
then single player only ideas that are implemented that just don't make sense because it's in the context of these multiplayer courses.
Yeah.
Where you're not fucking playing, you're not using your mega duff or whatever when you're playing multiplayer, because golf courses aren't designed to do that.
Yeah.
Only the very few scripted moments in the story are designed for those. So it's a hodgepodge of ideas that were already in the game to try to eke a little bit more value out of the foundation. And you say we're gonna talk about bosses, but why would we?
Yeah.
Because there's two. They play exactly the same.
There's three.
What's the
There's
third?
Snow King, there's the Firebird, and there's the Lightning guy.
Oh
with
yeah,
the
I guess
lightning
so.
sword.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're all the same.
Exactly. And that was gonna be my point, is that you don't even remember them, but it's because they're very shoot oriented. It's not an expectation that there's going to be boss battles until over 2/3 of the way through, and you're like, oh, there are boss battles in
Yeah.
this. And they boil down to the exact same thing, which is dodge a couple times, walk over to a big thing, make sure the duff meter hits at the right time, and then you do a third of the boss's health,
Yeah.
or something like that. And I would say they're interesting set pieces, but because they're so simple, it really doesn't feel like they, and because they're so samey, it doesn't feel like they put any effort in.
I agree.
Yeah.
But let's be fair for a second, because Aces is far from flawless.
Sure.
Again,
yeah.
Those RPG elements are even less useful.
Yeah.
Because it really doesn't matter if you level up or not.
You get better speed and attack and defense for your racket, which I never even felt impacted how well I was doing once.
Yeah. So you've got that problem. You have some repeated archetypes. You have, again, a story that is told pretty simply from a presentation standpoint, and from a narrative perspective has not a lot going on.
No.
But what you do get more of are cutscenes.
Yeah.
There are like no cutscenes in Super Rush's campaign. So it's hard to look at what Aces does and its flaws, and then try to equate that to Super Rush, because it really feels like these were completely different scales of production.
Yeah.
Which is disappointing, because you would think that Aces did well, then Super Rush would get an even bigger budget, more time. Clearly that wasn't the case.
Yeah. Who knows why that is? We talked about in our first impressions video that a lot of the issues with these games comes from the fact that Nintendo doesn't want to put the money behind it to back these games into what could be much more fleshed out, high quality experiences. Camelot's more than likely doing the best with what they can, but honestly, I almost don't feel like that's true, because they made Aces, and Aces is a significant jump in quality from Super Rush. Why isn't Super Rush at least on the same level of quality, polish, variety as Aces was?
I don't know. I mean, you would wonder how much the pandemic affected the game, but I don't think that's a very good defense, because then Nintendo should have bumped this game to give them more time. But everybody else is delaying their games because of the pandemic. I don't think it's not fair to release this game and then say, oh, we could have done better. Nintendo is fucking swimming in money right now.
Yeah.
And they have a really full release calendar anyway. I mean, we had like Game Builder Garage just came out. They just had a bunch of stuff before, and Skyward Sword and a whole slate. This game easily could have released in August and probably been a stronger experience.
Yeah. Oh, Super Rush.
Fun in multiplayer. That's the thing I keep saying.
Yeah.
It is still a ton of fun in multiplayer.
And I think that applies to both the games. I can't say I've ever played Aces in multiplayer, maybe one or two times years ago, but I have played a good amount of multiplayer for Super Rush, and it is a significantly better experience.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the content level gimps that to a pretty big degree, is because you can play multiplayer, but after a short amount of time, you're going to end up running through the exact same courses. It's not going to be particularly engaging because they all kind of feel the exact same. I can't comment on the Aces multiplayer, but
it's great.
We'll be able to see once Super Rush gets its full suite of post-release content, how much they can bump this up, because I think the single player content the multiplayer content can be bumped up quite a bit with more courses and variety and things to do in that nature. And hopefully more online modes, and some challenges, some rankings, whatever. But that's also one of our videos. Nintendo shouldn't be releasing these games unfinished like that. It's going to happen, and we can enjoy the content as it comes out, hopefully. But it's just sad that's not in there at launch.
Mum's the word on Super Rush's content also.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen a shred of a New Donk City course, which just looks like they ripped New Donk City out of Odyssey, which is fine, but I don't understand what is that going to be used for what? Who knows? The point is, we've got no idea what they're going to add. If they're going to add a substantive amount, we'll cover it. Probably on BLBS stuff.
Yeah.
But do you have anything else you want to say about these campaigns?
No. I'm not excited for future of these games. We have a video of that coming out pretty soon.
Yeah.
Or it'll already be out. Who knows what order these will be uploaded.
We got a lot of things coming to you guys.
Yeah, we do. But I'm not excited to see what Camelot does next, to be honest. I think after what seems to be 2 strikes and 2 misses, right? Not 2 strikes. I don't know baseball.
I think the answer is in baseball next. Speaking of that, but give it to Namco.
Isn't okay.
Namco's turn.
Sure. I think my interest in Camelot is just destroyed after 2 underwhelming campaigns in a row.
Give someone else a shot.
Yeah.
Next level games, Namco. You got teams that have made much better sports games in the past. So. Mm-hmm. I think that's all I have to say.
That's all. I'm done. I don't recommend Super Rush for the final time on this channel. Hopefully, I don't recommend you buy Super Rush.
I do recommend Aces. I will say that. That's with the post-launch content. You can probably get the game. Probably get a used copy for like $40. I do recommend Aces. And you can quote me on that.
Can quote that you recommend Aces.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Sure. I'll put on a T-shirt. Put on a bumper sticker.
Honk if you love Aces. Honk if you like Aces quite a bit enough to issue a recommendation on sale.
Sure. But it is in your top.
And the video. All time. And the video.